Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 News. Major development as to what is currently happening at Ferrari. Hamilton's new race engineer replacing Riccardo Adami is reportedly on the way, but it will not be an internal man from Ferrari. Apparently Hamilton wants an individual working at McLaren that Ferrari are working to acquire over the next couple of weeks. He will not be there in Barcelona, certainly the new race engineer won't. As a result, there's a different man stepping in for the meantime. Lots of updates as well on that Ferrari car and how close they might be to the minimum weight for the upcoming season. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Firstly, we're going to start here with Williams, because this is not Williams, this is the Red Bull truck, but if you look closely, and you know what Formula 1 detectives are like here in this community, if you look at the window, you'll see a reflection of, in reverse obviously, Atlassian Williams F1 team. So clearly in the paddock there in Barcelona, Williams have some sort of presence. And this is actually quite interesting. If you guys didn't see yesterday's unfortunate update, if you're a Williams fan, they've confirmed they won't be there in Barcelona because their car is not ready yet. Now, it's very difficult to spin this in a positive way. I know that some people have said, oh, it's intentional, it's a deliberate ploy so they can spend 2 extra weeks developing the car before Bahrain. It's like, no, they would not be planning to do that. Although, given that they weren't going to make it, they are now pivoting in the direction which gives them the best possible opportunity. They're not the only team struggling right now, that is for sure, but it's pretty tough because Williams have said for years that 2026 is their full focus. And yeah, Cadillac's car might not be great, but at least it runs and it's hit the track and it's passed the test, right? Passed all the crash tests. That is not the case with the Williams right now. So there's further concerns as well, but I think what's interesting here is they have clearly, according to this, some presence in the paddock, right? So it appears that there was at least an intention maybe to try and make it happen, but they've had to decide in the last few minutes they can't do it anymore, or they actually are going to be there after all, and their statement was just to throw off the community, which is not true, let's be honest. And the other concern is that if they're struggling with passing the crash test, which is currently the rumour, they might hurt the budget cap when it comes to potential future development. So yeah, you really wanted to hit the ground running in these regulations. Doesn't appear that Williams are doing that. As I say though, they're not the only team, because rumours starting to come out again that Aston Martin are also somewhat delayed. Now Aston were probably the team that we talked about potentially being delayed with the most likelihood. As we understand, Adrian Newey made the decisions very last minute in terms of making the concept with the best possibility of development over the coming seasons, suspension design, all these other things. And yeah, Aston have a lot of facilities, but also it's not been all sunshine and rainbows. Reportedly, they will be significantly over the weight limit at the start of the season. And they've been considered, at least until this Williams news broke, to be the team probably most behind the curve, at least in terms of the prep for the start of the season. As I say, that's not necessarily a terrible thing if indeed they have used that extra time to develop a car which has a very fundamentally sound concept with a very high ceiling in the future. That is understandable, but equally, if it's due to other factors where they've messed up, then it's bad, because that seems to be the Williams scenario. Dr. Obbs actually says the Williams news for him came out of nowhere. The rumour that he heard of a team sitting out of all, or at least some of the test, was Aston Martin. So we're still not sure if they're actually going to make it or not. As it stands, they will definitely not be running on the Monday, but other teams, I think Ferrari, I think McLaren, have also said that they're not going to be doing that either. They'll be running further on during the week, so Aston may make it in time, but they also may not, and as it stands, it appears that they certainly won't be there the whole test, and they have their own set of delays. Maybe for good reasons, or maybe not, because there's been some reporting that their chassis homologation, getting all of their parts to pass the crash test, some of which have gone to plan, and they've passed the stress test and all these new things that are required. Okay, crash tests have been required for a long time, but every single new cycle of regulations, the restrictions become stricter. So that's one piece, but it's believed that maybe some new updates still need to pass them. So look, this could be for the long term of Aston Martin, not necessarily a bad thing. They're trying to position themselves for success in this era of regs, not necessarily just for this year. But if there's one team that's further behind than others right now in terms of weight limit and other factors, it looks like Aston could well be it. Speaking of Aston, former Aston Martin man Dan Fallows, who's now been out of the team, of course he was at Red Bull, then he was an Aston Martin, he's joining Racing Bulls as their new technical director. So he is back with the Red Bull family, at least in some regards. The other quick update around the teams is on Christian Horner. So Flavio Briatore has said that Horner is definitely one of the interested parties in buying a stake in Alpine. This has been a key question in recent months. Is Horner going to come back? And, well, he is, I think. Where is the question? There's been talk about Aston. Could they need a new CEO? Yes. And Adrian Newey is not going to be... Well, he's actually not the CEO anyway. I think it was, Andy Cowell was CEO and team principal. But now Adrian Newey is just team principal, so they still need a CEO role, and also Adrian Newey isn't really going to be doing any of that commercial stuff anyway. So I think it does make some sense. Of course, there was talk about Gianpiero Lambiase, Aston trying to steal him away from Red Bull and Max Verstappen to make him the CEO, potentially, of their new operation. But Horner wants a stake, and I think Aston Martin could give it to him. But also, he would always be beholden to Lawrence Stroll in that scenario, and it may not be the ideal scenario for Horner. Horner really wants Horner Racing, where he can call all the shots. He kind of had that with Red Bull. It lasted a long time, not anymore. So Horner's interested in buying a stake in another team and kind of making it in his own image. Alpine feel the best candidate for that right now. After a challenging few years, they've got rid of their engine project. It feels like they might be on the verge of leaving Formula One entirely in some respects. Briatore, who's now calling the shots there, I mean, what a set of characters, right? Like Briatore and Horner coming together at Alpine. But he says that's a possibility. Look, knowing Briatore, you might ask him about this in 2 months, and he's like, what do you mean I said that? I do not recall saying those words, that Horner was interested. So, look, as I say, a couple of characters on that situation. Red Bull, they've got an engine project. Alan Permain, who's the TP at VCarb, he says, we don't have high hopes, we are sure. So, well, we have high hopes, he says, but effectively, no hopes, we are sure that the powertrain will be good, we are sure it will be powerful, we are sure it will be reliable. We have no doubts. So, strong words from Ben Hodgkinson, the top guy at Red Bull Powertrains as well. Maybe they are going to be a force, but the team considered mostly to be the force is, of course, Mercedes, right? And again, they're putting everything on their socials. It's actually great to see. But, I mean, here we go, right? They've got the truck off to Barcelona, leaving the facility in Brackley, all in performance. They've got the driver numbers and stuff on the back. I mean, they've got 63 on the side of this one. Presumably that's George Russell's truck. And off they go to Barcelona, right? So the team's already there. It's a pretty nice looking truck, actually, with the blacked out livery with the Petronas blue. This is the car. And again, another image that Mercedes have just given us. They don't have to, especially not for the other teams looking at this stuff. But here was Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes at Silverstone the other day. First of all, what a great looking car, right? Like, it really is. These era regs, I think, are going to be great. And, well, at least great to look at. Whether they are actually good, I'm not so convinced. But you can clearly see here, like, the tightness of the packaging at the rear of the car, the shape of the side pods, the undercut through to that gap in the floor at the back, in that they're calling it like a slotted diffuser, is some of the talk that we've had. The curvature of the front wing is very notable, and what's especially notable, of course, in this image is the active aerodynamics, because we have DRS open at the back, effectively. People are probably still going to call it DRS. Technically now this is straight line mode, but of course it literally is a drag reduction system, so that is what's happening at the rear. But also the front, you can see that that top element has been actuated up. And as we talked about yesterday, what's very interesting about what Mercedes have done that nobody else has done is mounted the front wing to the second element. So you can see the element 1 at the bottom here, and element 2 where it's actually attached to, they've not moved at all with this active aero. The active aero has only seemingly quite marginally shifted this down, to a much lesser extent than what we've seen with Ferrari. But there's more to it than that, probably, right? Because it's like, okay, Mercedes clearly are giving up some level of straight line performance by only having one of the elements of the flap on the front wing move rather than multiple. Now, either this isn't what they're going to do on the real car, and this is just a red herring for the other teams, saying, oh wow, why are Mercedes doing that? What's the implication? Maybe they will go back to something else, but I somewhat doubt it, because it would be a lot to develop this to not use it, right? So I think they must have a logic here. The logic may be more to do with the fact that straight line modes is not going to be activated just on the straight, right? On the exit of a corner, that will probably be where the zone shifts, and therefore there will be some straight line mode situations where actually you're going to be on a corner, at least in parts, and maybe some downforce on the front is still necessary. Very interesting, but also every single race weekends, the teams will be able to choose where they set these up, like the cornering mode, the straight line mode, where they have the downforce levels. Whether this gives Mercedes some better control of that, it's interesting to see them do this though, because nobody else has done this so far. We have another image as well of, this is Russell actually in the car from a different angle. So anyway, there you go. That's the W17. We have the best images of any car of this car, because Mercedes have just given us all of them. This is the Haas at Fiorano today, driving out of the garage with Ferrari power and hitting the track for the first time, Ollie Bearman behind the wheel. Now, the first thing you'll note here, if you look at the front wing end plate, is what is that, right? Like, is this some sort of, like, Bonacia's wheel to try and, I don't know, puncture somebody else's tyre? Because that is definitely, obviously, before the front wings came wider anyway, so it's not really relevant for that reason. But we've not seen anything like that so far either. As I say, if you look at the Mercedes, they have this small element at the top that Ferrari also have. They also have this little side element here to push some of the wake or push some of the air outboard of the front tyre. Other teams will come up with similar ideas, I'm sure. Ferrari right now have a similar looking thing, but it doesn't have this little element. They may add that in due course or something similar. Haas, they have actually quite a different bottom plane as well. Both the Mercedes and the Ferrari, they have that more curved kind of philosophy here. Both of the Ferrari has that as well. In fact, there might be an image of that I can share as well. Yeah, here you go. This is what the Ferrari front wing is looking like. Kind of similar to the Mercedes, but without that little element. The Haas is notably different with this stepped approach and a bit of a crease here, it seems. And then this absolutely massive additional wing, which we've not seen anyone else use so far. Again, as you can see, you look at the front wing, it's mounted to the first plane. It's mounted right to the bottom. So both of these two elements can move back, as we've seen Ferrari do yesterday. So, yeah, lots to say on these cars. And look, they all look somewhat similar because they're all the same regulations. But even the cars, like we talked about the Ferrari and the Mercedes, the side pods have some similarities, some of the front brake ducts have similarities, but every car looks quite radically different to every other car right now if you really look at the details, and that will probably be true for some time. Now, this is Ollie Bearman at Fiorano, and he had a bit of a spin, very lazy spin, and he eventually reverses out, and it's a bit, you can still tell how big these cars are. I know they look smaller, but you can still tell how big they are when he's trying to do a little three-point turn here. But yeah, this is the Haas on action on the track. He wasn't spinning every lap, he had some pretty good laps, and the Ferrari engine sounds reasonably good. But yeah, definitely an interesting spin. I think we're going to see a lot of this. These cars have so much torque at the low speed. He's clearly got like no grip. He loses the rear of the car and he spins out real quick. So yeah, not ideal, but not exactly a big problem. But I think we're just going to see a lot of spins like this. I think the way these cars are with the absolutely huge electrical motors, the amount of torque they have, in wet conditions, it's going to be very, very difficult to keep those rear tyres not oversteering out of control, I would imagine. So that's the Haas situation. But let's talk about Ferrari. This looks, when you first look at it, I thought this was like a retro picture from like way back in the day. And then I saw, hang on a second, no, HP logo. You know, this isn't a 90s Ferrari. This is the 2026 Ferrari from Hamilton's perspective. So sitting in the cockpit surrounded by the white. I think people were saying that with his yellow helmet, he's going to look a bit like a fried egg in here with the white surrounds. But yeah, then there's the red apart from that. But this is what it looks like from the T-Cam perspective with these new cars. Kind of different to what we have seen before. I think some of the retro kind of, let's say, filtering on this and the graining makes it look a little bit different. But let's talk about the car and also Hamilton's race engineer, because those are the key talking points. Is the car at the weight limit? There's been reports on Motorsport Italia that yes, the car, including the water, the oil and the driver, is just 2 kilograms above the 678 kilogram minimum. So that's what they've apparently declared. There's been a little bit of talk about exactly where they've declared this, because it appears that the official technical sheet that was submitted by Haas as well has also listed at 770. So the limit, of course, is 768. That's the minimum weight limit. There was a rumour a while ago now, really, but there was a lot of talk that the weight limit would be very challenging to reach. There's been talk that Alpine are about 772. They're about 4 kilograms over. Alpine were talked the other week that they were very close, that they was very impressive. Apparently Audi might be down there as well. Now, at the start of 2022, barely any of the teams were close. It was only Sauber, Alfa Romeo Sauber, that got it done, really. Every other team was somewhat overweight. This year, we've heard quite a lot of rumours that actually, no, many of the teams are there, and if they're not there, they're certainly very close. Audi, of course, Alpine, as I say. There was then talk about Mercedes have been, apparently they're very close. They're within a few kilograms. Ferrari within a few kilograms. So it might not be a big performance differentiator. However, Aston Martin, apparently they're 15 kilograms over. And it's interesting because if they actually are 15 kg over, that's like 3-4 tenths a lap at least they've got to be making up on everyone if most of the teams are there. Now, I think we can be pretty sure that Williams won't be there, based on what we've discussed over the last couple of days. Their issues passing the crash test, because unfortunately, if you can't pass the crash test, how do you fix it? You probably add more weight to that section and bulk it up a little bit. That's going to be challenging to deal with in the future. So that's the rumour anyway, because it looks like that a lot of the cars, including the Ferrari, might be getting close. Now, De Kester says effectively we'll talk about it when we want to talk about it from the auto racer side, to take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt for now. However, there has been lots of talk as well about the Hamilton situation and what his expectations should be for the season, especially with a new race engineer. So they've talked a fair bit, Ferrari, about the new power unit saga, the compression ratio saga, trusting the FIA on this. They've got the power unit advisory committee. Debates will be had. For now, it looks like Mercedes are going to get away with whatever they are doing. But the big rumour was a couple of weeks ago, and now it's been confirmed, Riccardo Adami gone as Hamilton's race engineer. He'll move into a different role, and who are they going to put in instead? So there's this Diella fella that we'll talk about again in a second. We thought he could be the key candidate, but apparently no, he will stay in his role and manage the transition to a new race engineer. Now, Brian Bozzi will be there in Barcelona. There's only one car on the track at any one time, right? So it's not like they need both Brian Bozzi, who is Leclerc's now engineer after Xavi Marcos was removed, or we say Brian Bozzi is there instead. But there's also this guy, Carlos Santi, who's going to be heading in to help as well. But according to Corriere, Ferrari are looking at McLaren and hiring someone from McLaren to be Hamilton's new race engineer for this upcoming season. And there's been a lot of talk about this, and kind of dramatic talk as well from Corriere as well. So it looks like Carlos Santi, who's here on the left, who worked with Kimi Räikkönen for some time, he's going to be Hamilton's race engineer for a short period. He's basically an interim solution. So he was potentially going to be the solution, the new man, the replacement for Adami, but apparently no. Hamilton wants someone specific, or I don't know, it's interesting to try and get someone from McLaren, because typically in that scenario there would be a gardening leave, or there'd be some sort of period where things might be more of a challenge. But seemingly either no, or they're going to do it anyway and find a way to figure it out. Now, what was interesting, I thought, in this report was that they said, in the corridors of Maranello, and again, I think this sums things up a little bit with the state of play at Ferrari. Now, look, did anyone begrudge Leclerc wanting to move on, as seemingly he did, from Xavi Marcos? We are checking and bring in Brian Bozzi, and that relationship has definitely been a lot better. Everyone knows that Hamilton and Adami did not have a great relationship. And if you're going to get rid of one of them, because I think clearly that had to change. Hamilton wasn't happy. I don't think Adami was happy with it either. What do? You get rid of Hamilton and keep Adami, bring him a new driver? It's not how it works, right? So if Hamilton wanted a change, which clearly he did, then it is going to happen. But apparently whispers in the corridors of Maranello are like, well, Hamilton's acting like a spoiled child. Apparently he spent the whole winter pressuring Vasseur to make this happen. So, look, again, I think it just reeks, if this is true, of, let's say, malalignment at Ferrari in terms of overall vision and overall goals. Some seemingly happy with Hamilton and the way that things are, some more than likely not. And yeah, if some members of the team are like, oh, I can't believe Hamilton got rid of Adami, like, he's a good man, obviously said all this in Italian, right? Then, and, bring in somebody else in instead, maybe it doesn't feel like a great team environment internally, especially because I think that the decision to make that change is absolutely justifiable, right? And especially given that Hamilton has plenty of ideas on what he wants the team to try and achieve this upcoming era, the documents that he put in, he'd be within his rights now to say, look, I don't think this is working. I need a new race engineer. Fred, can you help make it happen? And they're making it happen. And apparently that's a problem. So, yeah, all rather confusing to me. That this is Carlos Santi. Who are they going to bring in instead? Good question, we don't really know. Auto Racer also back this up in the article and say Luca Diella, who's this man, I think in the foreground, he's like the performance engineer basically, and he worked with Hamilton at Mercedes, so he was considered to be a key candidate. But he's an extremely important figure, he will stay in his role. Currently it seems the external choice, we think from McLaren, is close, and we can expect Hamilton's new engineer in time for Melbourne, but not sooner than that potentially. So it will be confirmed, but it's definitely not like, oh, they've got this guy and here he is, right? So that relationship also, is that going to be great? They're not going to have that long to really get things going. But intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Just one final thing I wanted to share for you guys. A couple of minutes here of Hamilton at their debut in Fiorano talking about his feelings on the new car and his excitement for the season. And it does feel like Hamilton, despite some of the negativity and the questions we've discussed in recent minutes, is feeling in a much more positive position now than he ever has before with this team. So, yeah, maybe there's some optimism after all at the Scuderia after what has been a pretty quiet off-season for them. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.
I can't really find words to express my excitement, honestly. Even like last night, I couldn't sleep that much because I knew today was going to be the day. The past days have been so exciting to see the car come together, to be in the garage and see everyone come, just all the hard work everyone's done, and I'm the first one that gets to drive the car is such a privilege and an honor. And getting in for the first time, I'm not surrounded by red anymore, it's white, which is a different feeling. Obviously, I'd always dreamed of being in a red cockpit, so this is now, but the car looks great. And then the door opening and heading down to turn one, the first time you get to turn one, you see the Tifosi. It's a really, really emotional experience, and it feels brand new. It feels like just such a new beginning. Immediately you're trying to get a feel for just feel anything, feeling through your body, through the G-long, through the vibrations of the seat and the suspension. You're trying to pick up all these little bits of information in the little time that you have. But and then just to be at Fiorano, to be at Ferrari, to be here, to know that this is the start of a long journey, but one that I know that it just feels right. I think the team is in the best place that it's been, I think, in obviously the time that I've been here, and see everyone so motivated and driven. I think we're really on it. We've got a lot of work to do to really make sure we do all our due diligence and we really understand this car, and we really have to be quick to react, be very dynamic. But I feel like all hands are on deck, so I'm sure we can do that.